Hey, welcome to this live stream. Appreciate you showing up, whether it's right now or in the future. And we're just going to wait for people to come on in. And yeah, lots of fun stuff that we're going to get into today. So feel free to drop your name and where you're from in the chat. And if you've got any questions that you'd like me to answer as we go through this session, yeah, I am open to a bunch of different questions to support you in building that strength, that mobility, and that energy for life. So, like I said, we'll take about a few minutes here just to wait for people to show up. And yeah, sound good? Sweet. So, couple things that are happening on my end. I've been talking about them a lot. I've been shooting out some emails, all that different stuff. First thing is the free daily charge program. This is really born out of my tumultuous relationship with burnout and you know, something that has just shown up as a theme in my life, and going a little too hard or just not really getting my priorities in line for what I want in my life, and therefore I experience these setbacks. So the Daily Charge program, it's completely free. It's 7 days of movement. I'm sprinkling in more and more follow-alongs in there as well. So I think you'll find 4 or 5 in that program, and you can sign up through the Smooth app. Let me just pop that link in the chat right now in case you haven't hopped on. But I would say the big focus here is accessible movement that allows you to tap into your strength, your mobility, and your energy. And yeah, so that is the link if you guys want to check it out. Highly recommend it, and it's a great starting point for anybody that wants to do a deeper dive into this move work. So let's see, we've got Eric from Vegas, Laura from New Jersey, what's up? We've got, not sure what your name is, but a 71-year-old grandmother. Perfect. Super excited to share some stuff that I think will be accessible for you, but at least something that you can start working towards. So yeah, simple follow-alongs are thumbs up. Awesome. Really appreciate the support, and glad glad you're loving the content. So we'll continue to pump it out, and if you like more follow-alongs, I do have now over 100 on the Smooth app. It's been a lot of work over the years, and so you can see that whole arc. There's a lot of consistency in that, and also I do feel like I'm putting out my best work right now. So I've dropped 6 in the last 2 weeks on the Smooth app. So if you like that stuff, go for it. And we've got Giuseppe or Pepe from Italy going international. I love it. Like I said, if you guys have any questions that you want answered, I got one right now from Laura. Love to hear it. Drop it in the chat. So Laura, I will totally, as I'm going through some stuff, like you're with scoliosis, my guess is it's functional scoliosis. But you know, with that being said, I'll throw in some things as reminders, because you know, I've got some kind of scoliotic stuff going on in my spine as well, and it's been a challenge to navigate at times, but also knowing that like I have some agency and some ability to make an impact on how I'm feeling. So I will absolutely answer that question. And in fact, I'm just going to add it to my little doc here so I don't forget about you. All right, sweet. So hopefully you can hang around. Like I said, I'll do my best to answer that as we go throughout. But yeah. All right, sweet. So let's dive into it. 3 minutes in. Yeah, so I am super stoked that, let's see how many of you are on here right now. We've got 16 people on here. Let's keep getting that number up. But yeah, thank you to you for showing up. And really the whole point of this live stream is, first off, I haven't done one in a while. So like, with that being said, like, it's a great opportunity for me to engage with you guys and do something that I really enjoy doing, which is interacting and teaching as well. The other thing is I have a lot of updates. I mentioned the daily charge program. I mentioned all the follow-alongs I've been dropping on the Smooth app. I also am doing a month-long co-live in Portugal. So if you really want a big shift, if you want an opportunity to really dive deep with all the practices of Smooth and do that with a community for an entire month, that'd be an awesome opportunity. So make sure you're subscribed to my email list. If you get the daily charge program, you're on the list and you'll get all the info for that. Super excited about that. That is in October, October 19th through the 15th of November. So, all right. So yeah, big message today is like something I've just butted heads with for a very long time in my life and just coming to terms with how I really want to train. So most people today train for exhaustion, they train for sweat, they train for burn, they train for this challenge and making everything really hard. And there is absolutely a place in training for that. But the thing I notice from my experience and then also working with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s is that it's just not very sustainable. So you may get this short-term gain, you may get this feeling in the moment that, oh wow, I'm doing something really good because you got the endorphins going and you know, you're moving your body and all that's great. But then, you know, if you notice the signals from your body telling you that like, hey, this isn't necessarily like super beneficial for me, or I'm not getting the results that I want from more of a feeling and I would say the energy level piece of it, then that's something to look at, right? And a lot of people just ignore that until maybe it's too late or it's a big uphill battle. So I want to share that struggle that I've had and that I know a lot of my clients have had, where I've got to tell them, hey, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. You don't have to stop completely, but slow down a little bit. And let's learn how to prioritize some things that are really going to make an impact in your life. So instead of training for exhaustion or training for certain numbers or milestones, in the gym and chasing maybe certain goals like size or shred or definition, which is all great things to train for, we want to shift that focus, not completely, but getting back to some things that really make a difference. So that's where the whole feel comes into play. So I am a decently strong individual. I'm not going to like tout that I've got insane strength, but in training a lot, especially in my job, I notice, okay, this is too much training and I have no energy to actually show up and use my strength. So the ability to feel strong, feel mobile, and feel energized is what we're going for here. So like if you don't have that accessible strength or mobility or energy, which is what's going to drive those two things, like that's something you got to look at. Like if you're run down, and you can't perform how you want to perform in your life, then your training is not supporting what it should be, right? Training should not run your life. Training should not define your life. It should support it, right? It should, give it more life, right? So, you know, the big thing with this is like the strength you can use. I mentioned that already. So like, here's a great example. Yesterday I finished work and I actually got a little workout in, and then my wife told me, hey, my mom needs help carrying this really heavy sander. Now I was able to walk over to her car, and this sander is really heavy. I don't know how much it weighs. I actually meant to look it up so I could brag a little bit, but that's not happening, right? So, but it was really heavy, and I was able to connect with the weight and carry it where it needed to be carried so she could do some work. And that was really awesome. Like, it's a small example, but I could tell you plenty of times in the past where I'd roll my eyes or I'd kind of like complain that I had to do something, and I was masking the fact that I had overtrained. I was masking the fact that I depleted my energy levels and I couldn't really access my strength. And then the other piece there is like mobility you can trust. So I've been on this big kick more recently in terms of sharing a perspective that I've had for years, but like so much of the mobility content you see out there is not really rooted in the center. And so approaching your mobility from more of a center out approach is going to give you this core stability that fuels safety and the options to expand your ranges of motion over time. And so what I do notice with a lot of the mobility content and a lot of stretching content is there's nothing wrong with like what they're sharing, but maybe they're missing out, or some people are rather taking that as, hey, I need to be doing this to increase my mobility, and hey, this is gonna fix my pain, this is gonna fix my injuries, this is gonna do all that, right? And I just found from a ton of experience personally, and I'm not saying that can't work for you or work for other people, but if it's not working for you and stretching does make it seem like you're getting tighter, then we need to take a different approach. And that's really where we're building that confidence in our ranges that we have access to without, let's say, massive compensation. There's always going to be some aspect of compensation as you continue to expand your options of movement. But we want to do that from a place through the center and something that we can really tap in and feel. So I'm going to give you a few things today that I've been integrating with my clients, and we've been getting some really solid results on, building out that mobility from more of this integrated and connected aspect as opposed to stretching specific muscles or just trying to get into particular shapes that look cool on Instagram or YouTube. So the last piece here, and this is what it runs on all together. Maybe some of you who are watching this came in through one of the videos that I shared on this, but like everything runs on energy. So like if I'm not a good steward of my energy, and we'll go into a few different resources as well that you can use, then like you're not going to have the energy to show up with the intent and the focus to do what you want to do in, sure, the gym, but also in your life. Like, and that's what I was noticing. Somebody asked me a question, how many hours do you train per day? And I was like, well, it's not like totally like focused training or anything like that, but I was like, it's around like 4.5, 5 hours. And when I said that, I was like, that's embarrassing, because knowing what I know, I can absolutely show up for 45 minutes to an hour and get some really focused training, high intent, whatever it is that I'm doing. I can be really deliberate about that practice and yield better results and have more time to show up for the other responsibilities in my life and have more energy to, hit different, sure, physical activities, that's fine, or different creative outlets, right? But if I'm constantly feeling this need to run myself into the ground, which it can be pretty addictive, I get it, then I'm not gonna have that energy to show up. So those are those things that we wanna continue to circle back to and prioritize in the training, right? And this is stuff that isn't anything new, but maybe how you've been approaching it or how other people have told you to approach it, it just doesn't work for you. And that's why you're watching this live stream. So let's do some stuff. Does that sound good? I know I've been talking and as I'm going through this, again, if you've got some questions, you want me to cover something, pop it in the chat. Also gonna just throw it in there if you're hopping on, you're new to the stream right now, go grab the Daily Charge program. It's gonna cover a lot of the stuff that I'm covering in this, Maybe not with as much nuance, but there's a lot of great instruction in there and some great resources to get you moving in this light that I'm talking about, right? Moving for life, not against it. Building your body as opposed to the grind mentality that I know so many people slip into. So, all right, let's do some stuff. I'm gonna check out my little itinerary here. All right, so I wanna do some things that focus first on energy, allowing you to really tap into your energy, and we might have to change the camera angle here a little bit, so bear with me as I do this. But yeah, energy, there we go. Yep. That was a nice little focus for me for years because, well, obviously my name is Grant. People call me G, right? Instead of focusing so much on the meathead outer G, how can I focus on the inner G, right? So feel free to take that into the fold. All right, so first things first, little brain activation. Now, the brain uses a lot of energy, but we want to be able to access more of that challenge that the brain experiences and fuel that into some more alertness and awareness, right? So simple thing to start out with. I do this every single morning. I take a lot of my clients through it. We're just gonna go into that march in place and then tap opposite knee and hand. So anything rhythmic really gets the brain working. So some of you might be working at home right now. Working, thanks for ditching work for a little bit. And this can be an excellent break in your work. Something to get you moving, the blood pumping. It's very simple, you don't have to think about it as much. And then you can really zone into the connection through the body. So every single time my foot is contacting the ground, it's a great opportunity to feel that engagement through my hip into my pelvis, and that platform through the pelvis is going to feed into posture up top. So as you're going through this, we're feeling this anchoring down through the pelvis, and that allows me to breathe into the body, create some decompression, lifting through the crown of the head and bringing those eyes up. And for, again, we'll get into some more specific stuff for like scoliosis, but this is a great way to just work on feeling into more space in your body. So with something like scoliosis, or maybe it's just some asymmetries in the core, different things like that, we want to feel into maybe some of those sticky spots and give them a little more space to work with. All right, a little more brain activation here. So I'm gonna pause, okay? Left hand to right knee, and then I'm gonna go right hand to left shoulder, and then I'm going to switch. So some of you might be like, hey, this is easy, let's pick up the tempo. Some of you might be like, whoa, what just happened to my brain? So find that tempo that allows you to complete the task. And then as you start to get better at it, you can feel into that rhythm, maybe feeling a little less tense or stressed in your body as you go through this. Okay, cool. So awesome work. You've seen it in a bunch of other videos too. We're just gonna take it into a bounce. So feet planted on the ground. I'm feeling those roots down through my floor. Oh no, I don't wanna bust up my floor, but I just did with my imaginary roots. So little bounce in place. Same thing, I'm heavy down through the pelvis. So what I mean by that is I want to feel that lower back not necessarily tuck under and where I'm really coming into this flexion through the spine, but I want to feel that lengthening down essentially into those heels. And now when I bounce, I'm able to feel a lot of length through the spine. So one thing that we can add to this for a little more awareness, and I know a lot of people that I work with, they have something on one side, maybe both sides through the lower back. So I'm going to take my hands, make fists, and then just take it into that bounce up and down. And now you can get that sensation of the lower back pouring down into those heels. And just this sensation at the lower back will help you map that area a little bit better. So when we feel tightness, when we feel pain, we feel crunchiness, whatever it is, a lot of times that's just a lack of safety because our brain is having trouble sensing that area. So it could be sensing that area, it could be moving that area. Both of those things are going to facilitate a more complete map and a better experience in your body. And then the other thing I want to show you here, because sometimes when people are going through this, there's a big time tendency to round through the posture, is this is my anchor, the pelvis. So I'm not going to jut my chest out to open up, but just think about that collarbone and that heart rotating up towards your throat. And now you're feeling a lot more open through your posture. So these are these subtleties right now that I think a lot of times are overlooked with something that's very simple, but you can do a lot with it. You can get a lot of benefit out of these practices in terms of supporting a little bit more energy. All right, we're gonna go into one more. You've seen this in some of my videos. We're gonna go with this pendulum swing, okay? So I'm just supporting that spaciousness through the posture. I wanna feel from the hip up to the armpit, nice length and depth into that armpit. That allows me to feel a little bit more supported up top. And then noticing, okay, totally fine. I actually like this a lot. A little baby hinge, right? That gives you the ability to access that support, that wagon back here, which will anchor the spine. And now you're adding a subtle lateral and then maybe a little rotational component to that position. Continuing to breathe, sense, feel into your body. This is about accessing that feeling of energy, that feeling of spaciousness and expansion. And that is going to, in my experience, lead to a lot better movement quality. And movement quality is going to help you feel better, I would say, in the moment as well as in the future. So what are those things that make it easier to show up and do that work? Okay, so we're gonna get down on the ground and go through, you know what? Not yet. One more thing, a little complexity. So if I'm swinging, I can bring that foot tap in, okay? So a nice little dance. I don't think I published this one to YouTube, so it's on the Smooth app. But you can see the Carlton is right there, right? So know that you can have some fun. I love doing this stuff to music because it gives me a metronome. And then also you can allow some of that creativity or that fun to come out of yourself, right? So making this practice your own. Okay, sweet. So how we doing? Let me know if you guys are having fun in the chat with a thumbs up. Great. All right. Let's go into stuff that I know a lot of you guys like. That's why a lot of you are here. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Boom. All right, sweet. You guys hear me all right? You know what? I can tell. All right, you guys can. So I'm dropping down into this quadruped position. And look, if any of this stuff feels like a little too rigorous for you, know that you can always go into the same intentions, but increase your contact points. So in this position, I've got a 6-point contact, right? I've got hands, knees, and toes. Now, when I lift up, and I'm gonna give you a variation that I've really been enjoying, and I know some of my clients that have had knee and hip stuff, and also spine stuff, this is gonna serve you a little bit better. So we're gonna drive through those hands, pull those hips up a little bit higher. So instead of that cue of knees right at the ground, which puts a lot of demand on the quads, we're gonna take some of that load into the hip crease. So we'll notice a loaded stretch through the hip or through the glutes here. And I like that knee bend, which allows you, if you just dump into the straight leg, it's a lot harder to find those hips. So a little knee bend is gonna allow you to anchor your spine, and then I'm driving through my hands, not so much into that downward dog, but just to create a little bit more engagement through the upper body. All we're gonna do here is hang out and breathe, and you can make subtle adjustments in your position, in the intent, in what you're experiencing in your body. So let's say if I feel like, hey, this left shoulder is a little late to the party, let me breathe into that, drive through the contact points, pull back through those hips, and maybe I'm able to figure out how to bring that back into the fold. All right, cool. So really awesome stability exercise there, and it gives you that opportunity to load the hips. Pretty much across the board, the pelvis and the hips are going to lead the way. So I know from experience of working with physical therapists and also just experimenting a lot, but like when I had a shoulder issue, the physical therapist started me with pelvic stuff, with hip stuff. And I was like, why are we doing that? And she's like, well, this and this and this. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like the hips and shoulders are connected. Same side hip and shoulder, cross body hip and shoulder. So these are things that are worth integrating as a whole, and then recognizing, hey, maybe there's some specific work that I can do for a particular joint. So can we develop that awareness to kind of identify that next step in the process? That's why I love this primal stuff, the quadruped movement, all that. Okay, cool. So we are gonna flip it over, and we're gonna go into a concept that I know somebody had a question about, and hopefully you're watching. If not, I am gonna put a video out of on this, but it's the kind of by the book term is like forced couple relationship. So if you're familiar with that, great. But basically we're looking at, in order to move through a joint, to move bones, what muscles are shortening and what muscles are lengthening. And this is an easier way to, I don't want to say easier, I would say a more connected way of going about activation in your body. So the idea is like, okay, if I come back into I'm about to go into a glute bridge, right? So in this position, a lot of times what I see is not a lot of connection through the core, and then there's this tendency to just like fling the hips up and go into this extension, right? And that's okay to be in that position, but can we really tune into what is creating support and movement? So if I drive through my feet, and it's not like it has to be aggressive, but if I think as if I'm pulling through my hamstring is going to shorten as the front side of my leg, the quads, and in this case, the hip flexors, as they go into extension, are going to lengthen. So I'm actually going to feel shortening through the hamstrings and the glutes. So as I pull, and that's going to support me in feeling a little bit more secure through the pelvis, I'm feeling the hamstrings pull me up. And honestly, like, this has turned into way more of a hamstring exercise for me than it is a glute. And instead of thinking how high can I go into extension and create some maybe folding, lack of space here, I want to think that way. Can I pull through my hamstrings to feel my quads over my knees? So now I'm feeling length in the front, shortening in the back. As I come out of that, that tension is going to dissipate here. And now I'm going to feel muscles lengthen here in the back, unless you're cramping up like me a little bit, right? And then I'm going to feel that shortening at the front of the hip, right? So just feel free to go through a few reps with me, driving through those feet, feeling the pull through the hamstring, not just up through the hips, but in that line. So now I'm getting this nice connection through my posture, as opposed to feeling like this maybe excessive rounding through my mid back or upper back, or like this excessive arch through my lower back. And then I control that down. Pulling yourself up into the extension, and then allowing that tension to dissipate. All right, cool. I saw some things come through on the chat, so I want to check that out. Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. I appreciate that. Definitely intentional there, you know, in terms of the explanation. So I hope I'm hitting that on the head with these concepts that I'm going through right now, because, you know, it's one thing to see an exercise, but to really understand what you're doing in it in a way that allows you to do it, not just think about it, is important. So I will continue to do that. Let's see. All right, so we've got a little bit of strength work into the mix, and that's where the feeling comes into play. Like, if I am able to access a shortening of some muscles or a line of tension that then facilitates some movement, to me that is like feeling strength in action, or that's feeling mobility. And that's a big difference between just hitting a shape or going through a strength exercise, right? So, you know, I'm down here on the ground. Let me zoom out a little bit so I can illustrate something else. If you got a kettlebell, you can join me in this. If not, a dumbbell will work. You could mime any of this stuff. I really am a huge fan of imagination. So if you don't have a weight, think it up. All right, so I'm gonna be in a seiza position, or this kneeling position. I know that can be a challenging position, so I'll give you a few different options, okay? So one I really like is this tall kneeling position. So when I come into this position, this allows me to really check in on my core, right? So if my hips are flinging forward like this, I'm feeling a lot of dumping of pressure, excessive shortening in the back, excessive length in the front, then I know I've got to lock in through there, and then I want to breathe into that to create some pressure on both the inhale and exhale. Now, from this position, if I'm pressing, right, I don't need to know all the different muscles of the shoulder, okay? You totally could go down that rabbit hole. It could be helpful for you. Let's just focus on this, okay? So I'm going to reach, okay? I'm gonna reach, I'm gonna press, all right? I'm gonna press through this as I manage pressure through my core. I continue to reach through that bell. I wanna make sure that everything is integrated, so this reach is coming through the center of my body, up through the shoulder and into the implement, into the weight. Now, in this spot, I'm gonna pull back in to my center. So this is just like a pull down, right? I'm pulling down, I'm feeling that musculature that would show up maybe in a lat pull down or a pull up or a row, and I'm bringing that right underneath the chin. So pressing up. I can use that weight to really feel the line of the body. So I'm feeling a little tightness here. It's a great opportunity to feel this active loading and stretch. And then pulling back to the center. And you can hear my breathing. So you can change that intent. If I really want to focus on the press, let's go exhale, right? Pressing, right? But when I'm coming down, if I want to really focus on that pull down, let me use that breath. Let me exhale a little bit more pull into the center. So, right? So I show you that because the idea that all these exercises are like different and that there's all these different unique things that are happening and you got to focus on. When you get down to it, it's pretty much going to be a reach and a pull, okay? So I like to do a little seesaw press with this, where I'm actually going to allow the weight to be pulled into my body, but I still got to maintain that level of connection. So just because I'm experiencing a little bit of rotation and side bend doesn't mean that I lose that center. And then on this side, I'm going to press or reach. So I'm pulling down on this side, and then I switch. And now I'm pulling down on this side, and I'm pressing on this side. And so again, you don't need weight per se. I'm gonna hit a few on the other side just to even it out. This could totally be imagination, right? And you can drive that intent. Weights can make things easier, but your brain, your body does not know the difference between like the tension that's created by yourself versus the tension that's created by weight. I will say adding a weight, there's this response through the nervous system that makes it a lot easier to access that. So again, I'm gonna pull down on this side, reach above the head, and then all right. And chances are on that pull down, you're feeling some lat. You're feeling as if you're pulling something into your body, right? So that is just some of the things that we're working on, you know, as I take my clients through these programs. Wow, really up close. I'm taking my clients through these programs and there's some questions that come up or they run into some issues. So like, what are some things for them to, let's say, execute the training in a way that's like more beneficial to them? and therefore building as opposed to just grinding through it, right? If you got a little tweak, it's not that it runs your life. It's not that it ruins your momentum or anything like that. It's like, okay, how do I connect through this? So yeah. Have I heard of the book Whole Brain Power? I have not, although I imagine it's pretty similar to some of the topics covered in some books that I have, in terms of just like intent and focus and where your attention goes. I'm catching my breath right now, right? But one of the things that I wanted to mention, I talked so much about energy as a resource. We've also got to look at time and attention. So I brought up time kind of secondarily, but like, you know, a lot of people tell me like they don't have time to work out. They don't have time to train, you know, all these different responsibilities. And like, look, I don't know your life. I'm not gonna tell you like everybody's got the same 24 hours, because that's just not the case. Like, everybody's got different responsibilities, right? So, but with time, like a simple thing to do is like, and I'll use this. I got this from, I did holistic lifestyle coaching at the Czech Institute. If you're familiar with the Czech Institute, really some great holistic health resources. But yeah, one of the things was like, whatever the amount of time somebody tells you they have to train, just cut it in half. So if somebody tells me they got an hour, cool. I'm gonna tell you like, adjust these workouts so you can do this in 30 minutes. I'm not saying you can't do an hour. I'm just saying like, you're probably going to be able to show up for this more consistently. And also that level of focus is better if it fits into your day. You're not feeling like you have to rush through it. So use that, right? Oh, like for instance, like my Primal Athlete workout, like program, those workouts take about 45 minutes, but the way they're structured and the app will take you through the workouts, the way they're structured, you could easily just like skip one of the rounds on the warm up, skip one of the rounds on the work set, and then one of the rounds on the cool down, and you're looking at like probably 25 minutes. So yeah, I mean, plenty of ways to adjust it. It's not about being optimal, it's about being consistent and building something that's sustainable. Cool. If you want to send me the book, sign up for my email list and you'll get an email from me in like the next week, maybe right away. Actually, there's an automated one, and just respond to that and I'll shoot over my info. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Let's go into some of these questions. Yeah, I didn't really do anything so super hard on the mobility front, but maybe that'll come up in the questions here. So let's take a look. All right, so, sorry, I've got some applications that want to open up and they might interfere with the stream, so sorry. Okay, let's do this. So I got a question a few weeks ago about no crunch or no flexion core work. And I will display a couple things here for you that will allow you to work on one of the concepts that's shortening and lengthening in more of a lines of the body, front and back line of the body way. This is taken straight up from the Core Connection program in the Smooth app. And I've got a couple videos on that as well out there. The thing is, like, we don't want to avoid flexion altogether, but I do understand the hesitation, and maybe somebody has told you, like if you have a spinal injury, no flexion, right? I'm not gonna tell you like you need to be doing crunches, no way. This is where I would start you, okay? So let's go back down to the mat. Boom. All right, we did it, guys. All right, so I'm gonna start with something a little bit more demanding because I did just drop a video called Why Stretching Won't Fix Your Tightness. I'd recommend checking that out for more of the bug, typically called dead bug, but we're building life, energy into our bodies, so it's just the bug. More of that intention is going to be helpful, but just know that this is just like a variation of the same concepts, right? So I'm going to set up with my legs maybe about shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit wider, a little external rotation, and I'm going to get a little drive through that heel so I can tap into that pulling or that tone in the backs of my legs. And then I'm going to allow this pelvis to get really heavy into the ground, really feel that seat. Hopefully I can distinguish a little bit between my hip capsules and my pelvis. That external rotation will help with that. We're then going to sit up and lengthen through the spine, okay? And I want you to just act like you're hugging a tree in the front. Now notice I'm not rounding a ton here, okay? That would be that flexion that maybe you're wanting to avoid or just be a little bit more cautious of. So I'm lengthening through the front side of my body and I'm lengthening through the back side of my body. And now I'm in a position where I can use any sort of shortening in the front. So let's say my ribs start to flare and I bring a little bit too much tension, shortening in the back line. I can use the flexion to then even that out and feel a little bit more space through both lines of the body. Same thing goes if I come into a little bit too much flexion, and this is typically what I see happens for people when they start to come back. Instead of maintaining that space and feeling extension through the hip, they start to feel a little bit more flexion through the spine. So as you lean back and you feel maybe a little bit more flexion, this is where you're going to take that tension, wrap it towards the spine, and then feel that shortening in the backside, that back line. And now you just even that out. So it's not a matter of, okay, is flexion bad, is flexion good, or extension bad, extension bad. It's more so accessing both of those intentions through your posture that allow you to create more space, allow you to feel into expansion through your torso and support through your torso so you can use your limbs more freely, right? And it's not going to require a compensation through the rest of your body, or at least not as exaggerated. So if you're in this position with me, I'm going to walk you through about 30 seconds of this, okay? So driving through the heels, a little external rotation through those hips, lengthening through the posture, hugging that tree, eyes up. Let's take them where the ceiling, if you're inside, meets the wall, okay? So a little bit up, and then you're barely gonna start to lean back. Breathing into the posture, in through the nose, and then out through the mouth like you're blowing up a balloon. You're gonna feel this wrapping in the front, security in the front, maintaining that space and making those subtle adjustments. So if you notice that flexion start to come into the fold, can you tone through the back line and feel that lengthening and opening in the front? If you notice your rib cage is dumping out here, use that breath to really pull in. And that's been a lot longer than 30 seconds, so let's go ahead and rest. I know this puts a lot of tension on the hip flexors, so we're gonna lie down on the ground and we're just gonna take it into a windshield wipe or a supine shin box. So in this position, I want you to feel anchored through the pelvis, but feel as if you're reaching from the inside line up from your hip, down the inner thigh and through your knee. So now I'm not compensating like that, but I've got this intention of length through my inner thigh And man, does this feel amazing for me. Not just me, I've gotten feedback from other people too, that this feels really nice after going through something that is like stretching or straining the hip flexors a little bit more. So again, just this subtle intent can really change how you're experiencing the movement, feeling the movement, and maybe able to make a shift, maybe let go. So for instance, right here, I've been reaching through, I've been creating a little length. I want to make sure I'm still supported here at the pelvis, but maybe I can allow that knee to drop and start to access that very elusive internal rotation that I know a lot of people are challenged with accessing, right? So you're seeing, I'm not cranking into internal rotation here. I'm still active, but I'm like falling into it. All right, cool. So I forgot to mention this in terms of the scoliosis stuff, that core connection work, that stability sit, up close, impersonal. All right, that stability sit is super money for that, right? It's not gonna like, you know, fix your scoliosis overnight, but you didn't end up there in the first place overnight, right? It's a postural thing that happens over time. So just tuning into that, right? Like, how can you continue to drive this intent of feeling into more spaciousness? So for that scoliosis, I would absolutely recommend hopping into the core connection program on the Smooth app. Some really good stuff on there to help you feel out a little bit more space. All right, I think I got time for one more thing here. We've gone over the no crunch, flexion, no flexion core work, lengthening and shortening concept. I am certainly curious, for those of you who have been there through that with me right now, did that make sense? The shortening and lengthening concept, specifically with that last exercise, front line, back line. Let me know in the chat. And then let's see, what else we got? Oh, I got this one recently. Can you build muscle through this type of training? So a few different ways of looking at that. And this is one where, you know, we'll save the exercise for something else, right? But like building muscle, I totally get it. You know, there's a lot of, I'm not even saying you might be doing this for like a vanity reason, although I know that is something that like people, you know, want, right? I talked with a guy yesterday who's hopping in the Primal Athlete program, and he was like, hey, I'm more of an endurance athlete, but I want to have something that is great to supplement with core, work on some strength stuff. And he asked the question, like, you know, is this going to help me keep some muscle mass on? Not necessarily build muscle, but keep some muscle mass on. And I was like, first off, yeah, it will. But there is an aspect of introducing some more specific strength-oriented training. So for instance, I love doing different things with the kettlebell, and then more so like the blend of calisthenics with primal movement, even if it's super basic calisthenics, stuff that is like at your level, like that's all it needs to be, right? So know that like, if you really want to focus on building muscle, you can do this stuff and prioritize that. It's not necessarily going to get in the way. I will say it probably is a slower build, but that's okay, right? That's not necessarily like, if you're tuning into my channel, like that's probably not like your number one goal, okay? Like building muscle, like for me is a goal, absolutely, but I'm not like trying so hard to accomplish it. I just kind of let it happen with my training. Okay, let's go into more of that scoliosis stuff. So really low hanging fruit here. When we look at the spine, we've also got to really look at the rib cage and the pelvis. So like a really simple way of, and this is the last question I have. So if you have a question that you want answered, drop it in the chat. Okay, so really low hanging fruit, recognizing what's going to allow you to stabilize through your pelvis in a standing position. So what I like here is double fist width apart and being very clear on where my weight is. So you'll see this a lot, right? Where like somebody will stand in a lot of different positions, or a foot will be turned out. And this is fine, right? But we want to have a home base that we can really experience our posture through. So that double fist width apart, toes pointing forward is going to be an awesome thing. And then we drive down through the feet to feel this sort of length through the body. I'm then going to take my hands onto the sides of my rib cage with this C grip. So when I do that, I'll see two different things with people, right? There's a big tendency to really round into flexion, and we can totally hit these to develop awareness. And then the other big one is like, oh, I've got to have good posture, so I'm just gonna completely close off my back ribs, which is where 70% of my lung volume is, and where we actually need a lot of mobility through the rib cage. I'm just gonna cut it off, right? So instead of that, I want you to press into yourself, okay? The ability to manage pressure into yourself. So you're creating force, but you're also like taking it on, right? So the hands on the side of the rib cage, you're thinking more lateral reach through those elbows, and you're just gonna breathe. Allowing the hands to expand, or the ribs to expand into the hands, and then exhale. Feel that natural wrapping in. Elongating that breath and not trying to force it. So the elongation will allow that fill up of the lungs and the rib cage to happen, as opposed to you trying to make it happen. And as you go through this, you might notice wanting to make some subtle adjustments, moving around a little bit, whatever it is, right? But essentially, we're using that stable base to lift the rib cage up off of the pelvis, and then feel this 360-degree expansion. And in terms of any sort of like the asymmetries I've experienced in my core and my rib cage and things like that, this is one I consistently come back to because I can do this every single day, no problem. It's a great reset that allows me to feel more connected through my core, through my rib cage, through my shoulders, take a little pressure, tension out of my neck, which allows me to move better when I train. So I look to those things that are going to give me more of that feel. Oh, I feel more energized. I feel more connected. I feel more integrated. I feel more mobile. I feel stronger when that's the case, right? So why wouldn't I spend more time, energy, and the last resource is attention. So where your attention is, like, that's really what's going to flourish in your life. So if your attention is constantly on, in this case, I'm not picking on you, I'm telling you this is from my experience. If your attention is on scoliosis, asymmetry, all that, that's a good place to start, right? But what are you building? What are you creating? What are you feeling into? And then once you start to tap into that, that becomes your North Star. The big motivational difference between like a build mentality and a grind mentality is grind is fight or flight. Grind is running away from something. It's fear-based. Build is more dream-oriented, something that you can truly put your energy into and create. And the more you can get into that mode, like it can just be training. It can just be training. I'm not gonna go like super out there with this, but the more you practice that, and the physical practice is an amazing way to do it, like you will find that it translates to other aspects of your life. Your ability to create what you want as opposed to running from something that you don't want is like, okay. So yeah, put an exploding emoji, exploding head emoji in the chat if you just had a brain explosion like I did, right? So, and if you've been watching my channel for a bit, like you probably picked up on a lot of this stuff. So like, if it's new and it feels like something that's foreign, like just sit with it, right? Like use this, right? If I could focus, right? The statement, if I could focus on what I want, then fill in the then, right? Then what? Then I could build the body of my dreams. Then I could get a muscle up. Then I could garden without back pain. Let's take that one a step further. If I could zone in or focus on what I want, then I could garden with confidence, with trust, with a smile on my face. So you see how I went from focusing on the back pain to focusing on what I want to create. That is the difference there in terms of the build versus grind. I am at an hour, so I am gonna wrap this up unless you guys have any further questions. I'm super stoked for the interaction in the chat, the questions, and I hope you guys are stoked on, I know I didn't take you through a full workout. That wasn't the purpose of this, right? It's about linking some concepts, linking some exercises to some key areas that I think are going to allow you to build that strength, mobility, and that energy for your life, which again, this is about supporting your life. It's not about training, running your life. So with that being said, I am, yeah, hey, Laura, I know you just hopped on the chat there. How did those land with like what you've been experiencing with scoliosis? Feel free to pop that in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Totally fine to stay on. Now I'm asking the questions, right? So before I do head out, I just want to remind you guys, daily charge program, Smooth app, check that stuff out. I'll pop a link to that in the chat. And then I'm also going to pop a link to the co-live in Portugal. So if you guys, I mentioned this earlier on, if you're interested in training with me for an entire month and living in a surf villa in Portugal, yeah, I'm doing that. So it's going to be super sweet and a great opportunity for me to go through all this stuff, not feel the expectation of a constant workout or all that. I absolutely will challenge you if you show up in a lot of different ways. And that's what I found most valuable in training. Not just training one quality, but really getting clear on what you want in your life. And then training for that. So a simple thing to look at is, okay, if I've got, if I experience a range of motion that I want in my life and I have trouble accessing it, or it doesn't feel connected, it doesn't feel stable, well, cool. To me, that's like an experience that I've had and I'm like, okay, cool. I want to build that into my training so it can support that. Instead of this idea of like, hey, I want to train everything. I want to be good at everything. I want to have the most range of motion. I want to be the strongest person, you know, yeah, things like that where it's really easy to just say, hey, I want everything. But that's not really that realistic, especially if you don't provide context for your life, because that's how you're really going to know if you own that particular thing and how you can continue to practice it and groove it into not just what you do in your training, but who you are as a person. So it's always available, right? I want you to take a look at what you're doing in the gym as an opportunity to take that into your life and experience that in your life, as opposed to kind of needing this fixed, controlled environment to always exercise and tap into that spot. No, it can translate. So can you look at that? All right, thanks for hopping in here, Laura. Mild back pain and indigestion really are a bother, but light stretching and weight training really helps out with everyday chores. Love it. Yeah. Like I said, core connection program in the Smooth app is super fire as well in terms of creating that space. And the one thing I've noticed, like why would I focus on some like stability oriented core, breathing oriented core? I want to get super strong. That's how you get super strong. Like if you can't access your center, you can't reference your center when you lift weights, good luck getting strong for the long term. Like it's just not gonna happen. So I know I'm talking in absolutes. I don't love that, but like I'm telling you, this is one of the things where it might seem beneath you because you're strong or you experience certain things. But like it applies to somebody like Laura who's working through some scoliosis stuff, right? And it applies to me who piled on a bunch of muscle and got really strong, but then couldn't access it or couldn't consistently experience that strength. So, you know, if you do find yourself like kind of with fleeting strength or fleeting mobility or just like not quite feeling connected with what you have available, like this is a way to integrate it, right? So, all right. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for everybody that tuned in right now, live and in the future. So, yes, if you're watching this in the future, thanks for tuning in. Check out those 2 links in the chat, the Smooth app, daily charge program, and then the co-live in Portugal. Super excited. So, yeah. And I tried to fix my hair today because it was a crazy mess and I did a better job of it, but it's still ridiculous. So if you've been making fun of me the entire time, I see you. All right. I guess this is where I say I will see you in the next one. Stay smooth. Happy Friday and have a great weekend.